This is a tutorial on rebuilding tips for bin. What you will find that you need, of course, are the old tips to rebuild, and we'll clean those up and make them like they were new. We need the stylus with the new rubber tips on them, an X-Acto knife, the electrically conductive silicone, a bit of heat shrink, and the plastic grip, along with the anesthetic rubber. So at this point, I'll clean the tips up and get back. So I thought I would show you what you'll find inside the tip itself when you're cleaning it up. Inside here, there's going to be a little bit of the electric silicone, and so you want to clean that out and clean any residue from tape or the heat shrink and plastic dip off of the tip itself. So I just take and run along the side of the tip, cut the heat shrink off, once you do that, it'll just pop right off there. And as you can see, this has got some silicone in it. I cleaned that out. And take the rest of the stylus tip off. And then I'll wash everything down with denatured alcohol. Now on some of these older tips, all you have to do is take the top layer of the silicone and cut it off, as was with this one. You can see that it has a little bit of the hot glue still there. This one, the hot glue came out when I took it, so I have to put a little bit of hot glue in there to keep the electric silicone from sliding down the tube. We'll finish these up and get back. Okay, we have our tips cleaned up now. I've chosen this one because it has part of the hot glue missing on the inside. So we will build this one out to show you how to do that as if you were building a brand new tip from scratch. The next thing that we have to do is we have to extract our rubber out of our stylus, and we do that by using a hacksaw and cutting back about a ½ inch from the end of the metal, and to be able to save as much rubber of the tip as we can to give us plenty of rubber to put on the end of the new tip. So we'll do that now. Okay, so we'll clamp this in the vise and cut about a 1/2 inch back. If I can get it to stay in the vise. This is very thin metal, so it doesn't take much to cut it. Okay, so you can see there's still plenty of rubber down in there. Then what we want to do is we'll go in with our X-Acto blade, and this is just glued in with a little bit of glue. And we'll take our X-Acto blade and run down in and go around the edge on both sides. Pull this back where we can get our blade in there. And just very gingerly go around the edge and cutting that glue. I just run that blade right along the middle. And there you have it. Comes right out, and that's the full length of the rubber, which will then have plenty to go over the edge of the tip and have plenty of cushion with the anesthetic foam on the inside of it. So we'll get to that and I'll be back. Okay, now that we have our hot glue gun heated up, we're going to take and just put a drop of hot glue right on top. That's all it takes. Then we'll let that kind of set up a minute and we'll push it down so we have just a little bit of concave area for our electric conductivity silicone. Push that down. Then we'll take our silicone and put a dab on the end. Just like so. Once we do that, then we'll take a tip, cut some foam, little pieces to fill the tip to give us our cushion. With a pair of tweezers, just put that down in the tip. You don't want to get too much because you've got to be able to have the tip go over your metal. And there you are. Tip's in there. It's got some cushion, plenty of cushion. And now we need to let our silicone dry. We'll be back to finish up. All right, we are back now. These have had a chance to dry. My next procedure is to wrap the end of the tip with an insulator and use it with the phone to see if it works. And it does. So we always want to test them. So this one's working good. We can go and go to most recent pictures, and there we are, AT&T Stadium. Okay, so now that we know that it works, then our next procedure is to put the heat shrink on it, and we do enough heat shrink so that it covers to the indent on the rubber tip and down about a quarter of an inch, which means that it's about a ½ inch long. So let's cut one, and then we will shrink it. So we got about a ½ inch. Sorry about that, didn't mean to knock the camera. There we go. And then we just slide this thing on. To that point right there. And then shrink it down. And I'll be back when I get that done. All right, we've got the heat shrunk down on there now. We've got it taped off so that we can spray it with our plastic grip. And what we do is we do 2 coats. So we'll spray a coat on, a light coat on, let it dry for 10 minutes, and then do a final coat for the second coat. So we'll be back when we get that done. All right. While we're waiting for the plastic grip to dry, I thought I would make a tip from scratch. Show you how to do that. So we just use a little bit of copper. Make sure you can see this. And bin specifications, we have them written down, and I'll send this with you. Bin specifications is overall length 1.25 inches with a tip length of 0.25. So we come down and measure an 1.25 inches. Get our cutter on here. Needs to go back this way a little bit. Right there. Get her cut. Okay. This does a pretty good job of rounding off. And what I do at that point is I take a small file and just file the burr, deburr it. Just deburr it like that. Here on the end where it was cut is the rounded off side. And we just go ahead and deburr that. Okay, that looks good. Now we'll take our little vise, and what I do is, it's probably easier if I mark that. We'll mark this at 1/4. And slip it into our vise there. Then we use the star washer. Slip that down and make sure we're at 1/4 inch. Slide that down in there. Crank her down. Like that. Now, here's the difficult part. Getting enough heat on it to solder that washer in there. So, we got our soldering iron here. And we'll get our solder out. Make sure we're in the frame here. My soldering iron not working with the glove on there. It's insulated. Here we go. We got some heat now. And what I do is I put the tip on the copper pipe, and because that's where the big heat sink is. And run it down to the washer. And just run it around. There we go. Got it. That'll take a minute to dry. Now, once we've got this done, it's basically back to the point of your refurbished, when you do a refurb. So everything from this point on would be just like it would be if you were refurbing an older tip. So we just let that sit there and cool off. It'll be a while. So let's go check on our plastic grip, see if it's dry. Should be by now, and we'll put our second coat on, and I'll be back with you and show you what that looks like. All right, we are back after having sprayed our plastic grip on the heat shrink to make it more usable. We very carefully pulled the tape off. Of each end. And there you have a finished tip.